A new challenge in the 2012 campaign. Some of the world's top economists today issued a dramatic new warning for America's future, saying our economy will fall to second place behind China, likely within 5 years. We'd already scheduled a conversation for this hour with one potential candidate, so we decided to ask him all about it. Joining us now, Herman Cain, former CEO of Godfather's Pizza. Mr. Cain, thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Shannon. Happy to be here.
Well, listen, you have successfully operated in the business world. You understand the U.S. economy. Can we turn this around? And what would you do should you be president?
We can absolutely turn this around, but the president is going to have to lead. I don't think we're going to get leadership out of the current occupant of the White House. Here's what I would do. The China strategy that I have articulated is real simple. Outgrow China. That means, number one, we need to lower the top corporate tax rate from 35% to 25% because we are the only developed nation that has not lowered the corporate tax rate in the last 15 years. Number two, take the capital gains tax rate to zero. This will cause some cash to be created, especially for small businesses. Number three, suspend taxes on foreign repatriated profits. Look, Shannon, the spending that this president and the Democrats have tried to do to stimulate this economy is not working. And all they want to do is spend some more money. We need direct stimuli, not more spending and not more government. That's what we need to do in order to get this economy growing from this anemic rate that we are, or in fact, China will overtake the United States in terms of its economic purchasing power.
All right, first on your list, you talked about lowering the top tax rate for corporations. And the minute that's mentioned by the GOP, the Democrats fire back that essentially what you're doing is giving tax cuts to millionaires and billionaires on the backs of lower income people and on seniors. How do you respond?
My response is, the Democrats are going to always demagogue anything that Republicans and conservatives want to do in order to be able to stimulate this economy. I believe that the Republicans need to go on the offensive and just explain to the American people how this is not rewarding billionaires. This is not hurting elderly people. Absolutely not. Educate the American people on how jobs are created. That should be the offensive message that they should go on. And I think that the American people will understand it and eventually get past it. The American people are not as stupid as the Democrats continue to think. All you have to do is go and talk to some of the regular folk out there.
You have talked very plainly about the current state of our economy. You said this country is broke, and it's really hard for any of us to face up to the tough solutions it would take to solve the problem. There's such a divide over this in Washington right now. Do you think that you could create and find some common ground to resolve things?
I believe so, and here's why. Because here's what I would do differently. First of all, I would be honest with the American people. Many of the political elites and many of the people that are in power, they're not really being honest with the American people. They keep trying to kick these issues under the carpet or under the bed when people need to be told that we are broke, number one. Number two, they need to get serious about cutting. What I would do different is I would get the American people engaged and involved in this. Rather than talking at the American public, rather than assuming that they're stupid when they're not, explain to the American people, here's what we need to do. Here's why we need to do it, because if we do not, and this latest news that you mentioned that came out today from the IMF about the United States becoming a second to China in 5 years if we don't do something differently, that ought to be a huge wake-up call. And if that happens, Shannon, that would be a national disgrace for the greatest country in the world when there's no reason we shouldn't stay the greatest, strongest country in the world.
All right. Well, part of the tough solutions or the strong medicine include entitlement reform. And how do you sell that to the American public?
We have to go from an entitlement society to an empowerment society. And what I mean by that, all programs need to be restructured. You can't just continue to raise taxes on these programs and decrease the benefits. And Representative Ryan's proposed budget is a great start in that direction. We can't just continue to do the same things that we've done before. For example, relative to Social Security, I think that we put the idea of personal retirement accounts back on the table and do what Chile did 30 years ago. They don't have the problem that we have today. Now, it got demagogued last time around as privatization. That absolutely is not the case. We need to take that route, restructure Social Security so we can achieve solvency. Or the problems that we are encountering, the crises that we now have, they are only going to get worse. We've got to have some strong, common sense solutions coming from the leader in the White House, and we're not getting that right now.
I want to ask you about foreign policy as well. What do you make of the situation in Libya? The president has stood by his pledge not to put U.S. boots on the ground there, but we have contributed significantly to what's going on. But even top U.S. leaders and administration leaders admit we seem to be headed for a stalemate in Libya.
I believe that, too, based upon the reports that I have seen and heard and read, that we're headed for stalemate. But, you know, when the United States is spending 5 times the next largest country in terms of how much resources we're putting into it, I don't think trying to lead from the rear is exactly what the American people expect. Anytime we're going to commit the amount of resources that we are going to commit, then I think we have not only a right but a responsibility to lead. Now, that being said, I'm not real clear, and I don't think most of the American people are clear as to what our mission is or what do we do next. It doesn't appear as if the administration has a clue. I could be wrong, but the American people deserve a little more than we're going to let NATO handle it and we're just going to kind of take a low-key position. I don't think that's what the American people are looking for.
And Mr. Cain, I'd like to get one more question to you about energy policy, about domestic drilling,
yes,
about environmental regulations and the like. Do you think that the president's policy of pushing alternative energy and the plans that he's outlined, the subsidies he's provided, are what we need to move to the future and to get away from fossil fuels?
The president's energy policy appears to be blame at the pump. Last week, he wanted to blame speculators. This week, he wants to blame oil companies. Look, we have enough energy resources, according to a recent report by the Congressional Research Service, that if you look at all of our domestic resources, oil, natural gas, coal, we can become energy independent. We have the largest amount, and if you throw in shale oil, we have the largest amount collectively of fossil fuel reserves in the world. So it makes absolutely no sense not to develop an effective energy independence strategy. The lack of this strategy didn't just start with this administration. This administration made the process even more difficult and slowed it down even more. So we need a serious energy independence strategy, and I believe that we can do this and we can make it happen, because I consider it a national security risk, again, because of the dependency that we have and have allowed to grow in terms of being dependent upon foreign oil. Or we have the resources, we simply need the leadership in order to make that energy independence strategy happen.
All right. Mr. Herman Cain, he's already won a couple of key straw polls. We know we'll see much more of you on the campaign trail, sir. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Shannon.